You are not here by accident. Something brought you to this moment. A quiet knowing, a pull you could not ignore. You have felt it before, the sense that more is possible, that your life is capable of rising beyond its current shape. Not through force, not through noise, but through alignment. This is not about changing the world outside you. It begins with changing the way you speak inside. Every word you repeat becomes a direction. Every sentence you tell yourself becomes a command. And over time, reality listens. This is not motivation. This is recalibration. A return to clarity. A return to authority. A return to the voice that leads instead of doubts. From this point forward, you stop speaking casually to yourself. You speak deliberately. You speak with intention. Because the moment your inner language changes, your actions follow. And when your actions follow, your life responds. This is the turning point. This is where everything begins to shift. I am ready. Chapter 1. The voice that shapes your world. There is a voice that speaks before you act, before you decide, before you move. It is not loud. It does not announce itself, but it is constant. That voice is shaping your world right now. Every thought you repeat becomes a signal. Every sentence you allow becomes an instruction. And whether you realize it or not, you obey it. You do not wake up and choose your actions first. You wake up and hear yourself. Then you act in alignment with what you have already said inside. This is not coincidence. This is design. Your inner dialogue is not harmless. It is directive. Listen. Most people believe their reality controls their thoughts. But the truth works in the opposite direction. Your thoughts prepare your reality long before it arrives. What you expect, you notice. What you repeat, you reinforce. What you assume, you become ready for. And so the voice inside you becomes the architect of your life. Imagine your mind as a control room. Screens everywhere, signals flowing, decisions being routed every second. You may not be seated at the center console yet, but the system is running regardless. Every internal word adjusts the controls. Every belief tweaks the settings. Every repeated phrase locks in a pattern. You are always giving commands, even when you think you are silent. Notice how often you speak to yourself without awareness. In moments of effort, in moments of pressure, in moments of choice, you tell yourself what is possible. You tell yourself what is difficult. You tell yourself what kind of person you are. And your nervous system listens. Your behavior listens. Your future listens. This is not about blame. This is about power. You were never broken. You were programmed. And programming can be changed. The voice you hear most often becomes the voice you trust. The voice you trust becomes the voice you follow. That is why repetition matters. Not intensity, not emotion, consistency. A single sentence repeated daily is stronger than 1,000 thoughts spoken once. Over time, your inner language builds familiarity. Familiarity becomes comfort. Comfort becomes identity. And identity directs behavior automatically. You do not rise to the level of your wishes. You act to the level of your self-talk. Become aware. Awareness is the first seat of leadership. Before discipline, before confidence, before courage, you cannot command what you do not observe. So for now, you simply listen. You listen to how you speak when no one is watching. You listen to what you say when something feels heavy. You listen to the tone you use when effort is required. Is it calm? Is it supportive? Is it decisive? Or is it scattered, uncertain, reactive? There is no judgment here, only clarity, because clarity creates choice. The moment you hear the voice clearly, you realize something important. That voice is not you. It is something you have been listening to, and anything you listen to can be adjusted. The mind does not argue with repetition. It adapts to it. If you tell yourself you are capable, your body prepares for effort. If you tell yourself you are steady, your breathing slows. If you tell yourself you will follow through, your actions align. This is not belief. This is conditioning. And conditioning works in any direction you choose. Most people let the control room run on old scripts, inherited language, past conclusions, unquestioned assumptions. You are here to do something different. You are here to take the seat, not with force, with awareness. You begin by noticing the words, then the tone, then the rhythm. You begin to hear how often your inner voice rushes ahead of reality, how it predicts outcomes before effort is complete, how it decides limits before evidence appears. And slowly you interrupt. not with argument, with presence. You do not fight the voice. You outgrow it, because once you realize that language shapes direction, you stop speaking casually to yourself. You become deliberate. You choose words that stabilize, words that guide, words that lead. This is how leaders are built internally before they appear externally. Leadership does not begin with others. It begins with how you speak when no one responds. You are always listening, so make the message intentional. This chapter is not about changing everything at once. It is about recognizing who has been holding the microphone. And now you are aware. The control room is visible. The signals are clear. The system is waiting. Listen, notice, become aware. I rise. Chapter 2. Awareness is the first act of power. Power does not begin with action. It begins before movement, before words, before decisions. It begins with awareness. Most people rush to change their lives without ever seeing what is running them. They try to act stronger. They try to think faster. They try to push forward, but they never pause long enough to notice what is already shaping every move. You cannot change what you refuse to observe. That is not a limitation. It is a law. Awareness is not passive. It is active strength. To observe yourself honestly requires courage. Not loud courage, quiet courage. The courage to pause when your instincts say react. The courage to watch when your habits say defend. The courage to stay present when your mind wants to escape into noise. Pause. Right now, you are learning a new position. Not above your thoughts, not below them, beside them. You are no longer trapped inside every mental movement. You are standing close enough to see it clearly. This is the first shift. Most people believe their thoughts are facts. They assume every internal statement is truth. They live as if every feeling requires obedience. You are learning something different. A thought is an event, not an order, not an identity, not a command unless you accept it as one. Awareness creates distance, and distance creates choice. Observe. Notice how your mind moves when effort is required. Notice how quickly it narrates outcomes. Notice how it predicts difficulty before difficulty arrives. This is not wrong. It is learned. Your mind was trained to protect, to anticipate, to conserve energy. It learned patterns long before you questioned, but now you are questioning, and that changes everything. You are no longer unconscious. Unconscious living is automatic living. Patterns repeating themselves without permission. Reactions firing without review. Awareness interrupts that loop. When you observe a thought without reacting, something powerful happens. The thought loses authority. It becomes information instead of instruction. This is why silence matters. Silence is not absence. Silence is space. Space between stimulus and response. Space where leadership lives. When you pause, you reclaim that space. Do not react. Reaction feels fast, but it is weak. Reaction is borrowed energy. It belongs to old patterns. Response is slower, but it is precise. Response belongs to you. Awareness gives you the ability to respond. This is not about suppressing thoughts. It is about seeing them clearly enough that they no longer control you. You do not argue with the mind. You watch it. You notice its tone, its urgency, its familiar phrases. You begin to recognize patterns instead of believing stories. This is where power quietly returns. Judgment is not required here. Judgment collapses awareness. It pulls you back into reaction. Strength does not criticize. Strength observes. When you notice a limiting thought and simply let it pass, you are practicing authority. When you feel pressure and choose stillness, you are practicing leadership. When you pause instead of reacting, you are training control. This is discipline at its root, not forcing behavior, directing attention. Awareness is attention with intention. The more often you practice it, the stronger it becomes. Not dramatic, not visible, but undeniable. Over time, you begin to notice something subtle. Your inner environment slows. Your reactions soften. Your decisions become cleaner. You are no longer rushed by your own mind. That is power. Most people think power looks aggressive, but true power is calm. Calm because it sees clearly. Calm because it is not surprised by its own thoughts. Calm because it is no longer pulled in every direction. You are learning to stand still internally while the mind moves. This is not detachment. This is command. When you observe without reacting, you send a signal to yourself. You are safe. You are present. You are in control. And your nervous system listens. Breath steadies. Focus sharpens, energy returns. This is why awareness is the first act of power. Before confidence, before courage, before decisive action. Because without awareness, action is blind. You begin to see how often you used to move without choosing, how often old habits decided for you, how often familiar thoughts shaped outcomes. And instead of feeling regret, you feel clarity. Clarity brings relief. Relief does not weaken you. It stabilizes you. From stability, strength grows. Now, when a thought arises, you recognize it as a visitor. You do not immediately invite it to lead. You do not immediately obey. You observe. Some thoughts fade when ignored. Some return repeatedly. Those that repeat are not enemies. They are signals. Signals of conditioning. Signals of habit. Signals of areas where awareness is still forming. You do not rush to fix them. You continue observing. Observation is already changing because what is seen cannot remain unconscious. Slowly, the voice inside loses its urgency. It no longer needs to shout to be heard. It no longer controls through surprise. You are no longer unconscious. You are present, and presence changes the entire structure of your inner world. This is the foundation. Everything that follows depends on this. Leadership begins here, in the pause, in the space, in the decision not to react. Pause, observe, do not react. This is not weakness. This is command. And now that you can see clearly, something new is possible. Not yet action, not yet transformation, but readiness. The kind of readiness that changes outcomes before movement even begins. You are standing at the threshold, aware, calm, in control, and the next step will require everything you are now becoming. Chapter 3. You are not your old voice. There comes a moment when awareness deepens into recognition, not just noticing the voice inside you, but realizing something essential about it. That voice did not originate with you. It was given, absorbed, learned over time. And what was learned can be unlearned. The voice you hear most often is not your true authority. It is a recording, a collection of past instructions, repeated so often they began to sound like truth. But repetition does not equal accuracy. It only creates familiarity. This is where separation begins. You have spent years listening to an internal narrator that speaks in borrowed language, language shaped by environments, by pressure, by moments when you adapted in order to survive, belong, or endure. That voice once served a purpose. It helped you navigate uncertainty. It helped you avoid risk when safety mattered more than growth. But purpose expires, and now that same voice limits what you are becoming. This is not failure. This is evolution. You are not your old voice. You are the one who hears it. Separation does not mean rejection. It means clarity. When a thought arises, you no longer merge with it automatically. You ask a simple question, even if only silently. Is this who I am now? Often the answer is no. That answer is not emotional. It is factual, because identity is not frozen in time. It is constructed through repetition and choice. The old voice speaks from habit. The new voice will speak from intention, and intention always feels unfamiliar at first. Outgrowing a language that no longer fits is uncomfortable, not because the new language is wrong, but because the old one was practiced for so long. Think of wearing clothing from a previous stage of your life. At one time it fit perfectly. It served you. It matched who you were then. Now it restricts movement. Now it feels tight. Now it limits range. The problem is not the clothing. The problem is growth. Your internal language works the same way. Phrases you once used to protect yourself now constrain you. Stories you once told to cope now define limits that no longer apply. And still the voice keeps speaking. Out of habit, out of familiarity, not authority. Decide. Decision is the moment where identity begins to shift. Not a loud declaration, not an argument with the past. A quiet recognition. I am no longer who I was. This does not erase your history. It reframes it. Your past conditioning explains patterns. It does not dictate outcomes. Many people confuse familiarity with truth. They assume that because a thought has always been there, it must be correct. But longevity does not grant leadership. The old voice speaks automatically. The new voice must be chosen. And choice feels effortful at first. That effort is not resistance. It is rewiring. Each time you choose not to follow the old script, you weaken its authority. Each time you respond differently, you strengthen something new. Replace. Replacement is not forceful. It is precise. You do not remove the old voice by fighting it. You replace it by introducing a stronger one. The mind follows clarity, not conflict. When the old voice says stop, the new voice says steady. When the old voice predicts failure, the new voice states process. When the old voice rushes, the new voice slows. This is not positive thinking. It is grounded leadership. You are not trying to sound inspiring. You are trying to sound accurate. Accuracy builds trust. Trust builds follow-through. The more often you speak to yourself with calm authority, the more your system aligns. Muscles respond. Breath adjusts. Attention sharpens. You are training yourself to listen to a different leader. At first, the old voice will resist. Not aggressively. Persistently. It will repeat familiar phrases. It will try to pull you back into identity you have already outgrown. This does not mean you are failing. It means the process is working. Old systems react when control is threatened. You remain steady. You do not argue. You do not explain. You do not negotiate. You replace. The new voice does not rush to dominate. It shows up consistently. It speaks clearly. It speaks calmly. And over time, consistency wins. This is how authority transfers internally, not through intensity, through repetition. You begin to notice a shift. Moments where the old voice speaks, and you no longer follow. Moments where hesitation appears, and you move anyway. Moments where doubt arises, and you remain steady. These moments matter more than dramatic change. They are evidence. Evidence that you are no longer governed by inherited language. You are building your own. Language shapes expectation. Expectation shapes behavior. Behavior shapes results. This is the chain you are now consciously designing. The old voice spoke from memory. The new voice speaks from direction. Direction always feels quieter than noise, but it carries more weight. Leadership does not shout. It guides. You begin to realize something subtle. You do not need to eliminate every old thought to move forward. You only need to stop obeying them. Obedience is what gave them power. That power is no longer automatic. You choose what you follow now. This is the you versus the old self conflict, not a battle, a transition. The old self was built to survive. The new self is built to lead. Survival prioritizes safety. Leadership prioritizes alignment. Both are intelligent, but only one fits where you are going. Outgrowing does not dishonor the past. It honors growth. You acknowledge what the old voice protected you from, and you acknowledge what it can no longer provide. Then you move forward. Replace the tone. Replace the pacing. Replace the assumptions. You speak to yourself as someone you trust, someone capable, someone steady under pressure, not with praise, with clarity. Clarity removes confusion. Confusion weakens action. As your inner language stabilizes, your outer behavior follows naturally. You hesitate less. You explain less. You act with fewer internal negotiations. This is not impulsive. It is aligned. The more you align your language with who you are becoming, the less effort progress requires. Momentum increases. Resistance decreases. You are not forcing change. You are allowing accuracy. The old voice does not disappear overnight. It fades through irrelevance. It speaks. You do not answer. And eventually it grows quiet. Not because it was silenced, because it was replaced. You are no longer defined by past conditioning. You are defined by present choice. Each sentence you speak internally is a vote, not for who you were, for who you are becoming. And now you are choosing deliberately. Separate, decide, replace. This is not a one-time act. It is a practice, and with each repetition, the new voice grows stronger, calmer, clearer, more trusted. You are stepping into authorship. You are no longer reciting old scripts. You are writing direction. And as this new language settles in, something changes quietly. Your posture, your pace, your presence. Others may not notice yet, but you will, because the way you speak to yourself has shifted, and that shift is irreversible. I decide who I become. The old voice is behind you now, still audible, no longer in control. Ahead of you is a new language forming, one that fits where you are going, and as it strengthens, the world around you will begin to respond. Not yet dramatically, not yet fully, but unmistakably. The next stage is already preparing itself, and it will require this new voice to lead. Chapter 4: Language Creates Identity. Every identity begins as a sentence, not a dramatic moment, not a defining event. A sentence, something you said to yourself once, then again, then enough times that it stopped sounding optional. This is how identity forms. You do not wake up one day and become confident. You wake up one day and start speaking differently inside, and confidence follows. You do not suddenly become disciplined. You begin using language that assumes follow-through, and discipline builds itself around those words. You speak yourself into character. Language is not decoration. It is construction. Every word you use internally sets a standard. Every phrase signals expectation. An expectation quietly governs behavior. You do not act randomly. You act in alignment with who you believe you are. And who you believe you are is shaped by what you repeatedly say. This is not philosophy. This is structure. When you say, "This is just how I am," you are not describing yourself. You are assigning permanence. You are closing a door. When you say, "I am learning," you are not excusing weakness. You are creating capacity. You are opening space. The difference is language. Most people think identity is discovered, as if it exists somewhere, waiting to be found. But identity is built, word by word, choice by choice. The language you use determines the version of yourself that shows up under pressure. Choose your words. Words are tools. And like all tools, they can either build or limit. When your inner language is careless, your identity becomes unstable. When your inner language is deliberate, your identity solidifies. Notice how standards are embedded in language. If you tell yourself, "I try," you permit inconsistency. If you tell yourself, "I do," you expect completion. If you say, "I hope," you prepare for uncertainty. If you say, "I will," you prepare for execution. These are not motivational tricks. They are identity signals. Your nervous system responds differently to each one. Your posture shifts. Your focus sharpens or scatters. Language is instruction at the deepest level. Speak with intent. Intent is what separates leadership from noise. Leadership does not require loud words. It requires precise ones. When you speak with intent, you remove ambiguity. Ambiguity weakens action. Clarity strengthens it. Most internal resistance is not resistance at all. It is confusion created by vague language. Your mind hesitates when instructions are unclear. It moves when direction is firm. This is why self-talk matters more than motivation. Motivation fades. Language remains. What you say repeatedly becomes familiar. What becomes familiar becomes believable. What becomes believable becomes automatic. This is how identity stabilizes. Think about the standards you live by now, not the ones you admire, the ones you consistently meet. Those standards are enforced by language. The way you describe effort, the way you describe difficulty, the way you describe yourself when no one hears. That description is not neutral. It is programming. Many people unknowingly speak themselves into limitation, not because they lack potential, because they lack awareness. They use absolute language without realizing it. Always, never, just the way it is. These words freeze identity. You are not fixed. You are forming, and formation responds to language. When you change how you speak, you change what you expect. When you change what you expect, you change what you tolerate. When you change what you tolerate, you change how you act. This is the chain. Identity is not who you want to be. It is who your language assumes you already are. If your words assume weakness, behavior follows. If your words assume steadiness, behavior aligns. This is not pretending. IT is training. The mind does not require proof to begin adapting. It requires consistency. Consistency in language creates internal trust. Trust creates willingness. Willingness creates movement. Over time, the version of you that acts becomes the version of you that exists. And it all started with how you spoke. You speak yourself into character every day, whether you mean to or not. Now you are choosing to mean it. Choose your words carefully, but not delicately. Strength does not require softness. It requires accuracy. Accurate language reflects who you are becoming, not who you were. Instead of speaking from frustration, you speak from direction. Instead of narrating struggle, you narrate process. Instead of labeling yourself, you describe behavior. This shift is subtle but powerful. I am bad at this becomes I am improving this. I cannot handle pressure becomes I am learning to stay steady. I always fail becomes I adjust and continue. These are not affirmations. They are identity instructions. Each one removes finality. Each one restores agency. Agency is the core of leadership. Leaders speak in ways that create motion, not excuses, not drama. They speak in ways that assume responsibility and capability. And when you speak that way to yourself, you begin leading yourself. This is where confidence comes from, not praise. Predictability. When you know how you will speak to yourself under pressure, you trust yourself more. When you trust yourself, confidence appears naturally. Confidence is not loud. It is consistent. It is the quiet certainty that you will follow through on your own words. That certainty is built internally before it ever shows externally. You begin to feel it when effort increases. The voice inside no longer panics. It instructs. It does not say, "This is too much." It says, "Adjust and continue." It does not say, "What if you fail?" It says, "Focus on the next step." This is not emotional suppression. It is leadership language, language that keeps momentum intact. As this becomes familiar, your standards rise without force. You no longer tolerate language that weakens you. Not from others, not from yourself. You begin correcting internal phrasing automatically, not harshly, precisely, because you understand something now. Every sentence is a vote for who you are reinforcing. You may not control every thought that appears, but you control which ones you repeat. And repetition is what builds identity. You do not need perfect language. You need intentional language. Intentional language creates internal order. Order creates efficiency. Efficiency creates progress. Progress builds belief. Belief stabilizes identity. And identity directs your life. This is why language creates identity. Not someday, every day, even now. As you listen, your mind is registering patterns, cadence, tone, structure, and it is adapting. You are not forcing change. You are allowing alignment. Alignment between who you are becoming and how you speak. This alignment reduces friction. Decisions feel cleaner. Actions feel lighter. You are no longer fighting yourself because your language and your direction match. Speak with intent. Intent does not rush. Intent does not over-explain. Intent does not negotiate with old habits. Intent states direction and moves. As this chapter settles, you may notice something unexpected. Less internal noise, less commentary, more clarity. That is identity stabilizing. Not through effort, through language. You are no longer speaking to survive. You are speaking to lead. And leadership begins internally. The words you choose now will echo forward, into your habits, into your decisions, into the way you show up when it matters. This is not about perfection. It is about authorship. You are writing yourself into existence, one sentence at a time. And as this new language takes root, something shifts quietly beneath the surface. Your standards rise. Your patience deepens. Your presence strengthens. The character you are speaking into being is already forming. And soon, it will require discipline to sustain it. Because once identity is built, it must be protected. That is where the next stage begins. Chapter 5. Discipline begins in silence. There is a stage in growth where noise becomes unnecessary. Not because nothing is happening, but because everything important is happening underneath. This is where discipline truly begins. Not in declarations, not in promises, not in explanations. In silence, power grows when it stops announcing itself. At earlier stages, effort needs expression. You talk about what you will do. You explain why you are trying. You seek confirmation that you are on the right path. That is natural. That is learning. But there comes a point where explanation starts to weaken momentum, where talking replaces doing, where intention becomes performance. Discipline begins when you no longer need to be seen becoming something. You simply become it. Silence is not withdrawal. It is containment. It is the ability to hold direction internally without leaking energy outward. It is restraint applied to words, reactions, and impulses. This restraint is not repression. It is refinement. When you speak less, you hear more. When you explain less, you focus more. When you announce less, you execute more. This is the shift from intention to identity. Early on, people announce goals because the goal itself provides energy. Later, the work requires a different fuel. Quiet commitment. Silence protects that fuel. Every explanation invites opinion. Every announcement invites interruption. Every justification invites doubt. Not because others intend harm, but because noise disperses focus. Discipline is focus preserved over time. Stay quiet. This does not mean you become distant or cold. It means you become selective. You choose when words add value. You choose when silence strengthens resolve. You stop narrating your effort. You stop defending your direction. You stop explaining your standard, not out of arrogance, out of clarity. Clarity does not argue. It moves. Delayed gratification is born here. The ability to hold effort without immediate recognition. The ability to work without external reward. The ability to progress without applause. This is where leaders separate themselves internally. Most people need feedback to continue. They need validation to persist. They need acknowledgement to feel real. Discipline does not. Discipline is self-confirming. When you act in alignment with your standards, you reinforce identity. That reinforcement becomes enough. Silence strengthens this loop. You begin to notice how much energy used to leave your system through words, explaining plans, defending choices, reacting to opinions. Now that energy stays with you. It becomes focus. It becomes consistency. It becomes stamina. Stay focused. Focus is not intensity. It is continuity. Silence helps continuity by reducing friction. Less commentary means fewer internal negotiations. Fewer negotiations mean cleaner execution. You do not need to convince anyone of your discipline, including yourself. Your behavior will speak soon enough. This stage can feel unfamiliar at first. Without explanation, it may feel like something is missing, like momentum has slowed. It has not. It has gone inward. This is where real structure is built. Think of a foundation being laid. There is noise at the beginning. Tools, movement, direction. But as depth increases, the work becomes quieter, more precise, less visible. That is where stability comes from. You are building internal load-bearing strength. This requires restraint. Restraint with reactions. Restraint with speech. Restraint with impulses to prove progress. Every time you choose silence instead of explanation, you train patience. Every time you choose focus instead of reaction, you train control. Control is not rigidity. It is availability of choice. Silence gives you choice. When something challenges, you no longer rush to respond. You pause. You assess. You choose. That choice preserves energy. Energy preservation is discipline. Most exhaustion does not come from effort. It comes from unnecessary output. Words spoken without purpose. Reactions given without intention. Emotions released without direction. Silence filters all of this. You are not suppressing expression. You are aligning it. You speak when words move you forward. You stay quiet when silence strengthens. This discernment is leadership. Leaders do not speak constantly. They speak deliberately. They understand that every word carries weight. An unnecessary weight slows progress. As silence becomes familiar, something else happens. Your standards sharpen. You become less tolerant of internal noise, less patient with excuses, less interested in distraction. Not because you are forcing discipline, because your identity is stabilizing. You no longer need to convince yourself who you are. Your actions confirm it. This confirmation is quiet but powerful. It builds self-respect. Self-respect does not need display. It requires consistency, and consistency thrives in silence. You begin to experience delayed gratification differently, not as denial, as investment. You choose long-term alignment over short-term relief. You choose progress over praise. You choose structure over stimulation. This choice compounds. At first, the reward is subtle, a sense of calm, a sense of order. Later, it becomes confidence, then authority, then momentum. But it all begins here. With restraint, there is strength in not responding immediately. There is power in not explaining your process. There is clarity in not sharing every thought. Silence creates a boundary. Inside that boundary, discipline grows. You start to notice that others respond differently, not because you say more, because you say less. Presence increases when noise decreases. You carry yourself differently. Your pace steadies. Your intent, eye narrows. This is not withdrawal from life. It is engagement without leakage. You are fully involved, fully present, fully committed, without announcement. This stage is where many stop, because silence feels uncomfortable. It removes external feedback loops. It requires internal trust. But you are building that trust now. Each day you act without explanation, you strengthen self-belief. Each time you choose focus over reaction, you reinforce authority. authority over your own impulses, authority over your attention, authority over your direction. This authority is quiet, and that is why it lasts. You no longer rush to correct how others see you. You no longer need agreement to proceed. You no longer depend on recognition to continue. You are guided internally. This is what it means to stop explaining and start becoming. Becoming does not require witnesses. It requires discipline. Discipline does not require noise. It requires alignment. Alignment grows best in silence. As this becomes your natural state, you begin to realize something important. You have more time, more energy, more mental space, not because responsibilities disappeared, because friction did. You are no longer scattered by commentary. You are no longer delayed by reaction. You are no longer drained by unnecessary output. This is efficiency. Efficiency is quiet power. It allows you to move steadily while others rush. It allows you to stay composed while others react. It allows you to continue when others burn out. This is why discipline begins in silence, not as punishment, as protection. Protection of focus, protection of energy, protection of direction. You are not hiding. You are preparing. Preparation is rarely loud. The strongest structures are built where no one is watching. And when the time comes to act decisively, there is no hesitation, no announcement, no explanation, just movement. This chapter is not about isolation. It is about containment, keeping your effort close, keeping your direction clear, keeping your discipline intact. Silence is not the absence of voice. It is the presence of control. Stay quiet. Stay focused. This is not a temporary phase. It is a permanent upgrade. Because once you learn to hold your power without broadcasting it, you stop needing permission. And when you stop needing permission, your progress accelerates. The work continues, quietly, consistently, and soon the results will speak, not loudly, but unmistakably. This is the discipline that lasts, and it is only the beginning. Chapter 6. The inner leader takes control. Leadership does not arrive from the outside. It is not granted by position, permission, or recognition. It does not wait for circumstances to improve. Leadership begins internally. Before you lead situations, you lead yourself. Before you direct outcomes, you direct attention. Before you command others, you command your own inner state. This is where control shifts. Until now, you have been learning to listen, to observe, to separate, to refine language, and to protect focus. All of that prepared you for this moment, because awareness without command is incomplete. Silence without direction is unfinished. Now the inner leader steps forward. Stand up, not physically, internally. Stand up in posture, in tone, in decision. This is the moment when your internal voice stops asking and starts instructing. Authority does not shout. Authority states. The inner leader does not debate endlessly. It assesses, decides, and moves. Most people mistake leadership for confidence, but confidence is an effect, not a cause. The cause is self-command. Self-command means your words inside match your direction outside. It means when effort is required, you do not negotiate with hesitation. You acknowledge it, then proceed. This is not harshness. It is clarity. The inner leader speaks in short, precise language. Language that stabilizes. Language that mobilizes. There is no excess commentary, no emotional narration, no unnecessary explanation. Only instruction. Take command. Command of your attention. Command of your pace. Command of your response. When pressure appears, the inner leader does not panic. It slows the system. It narrows focus. It prioritizes the next step. This is leadership under pressure. You have seen it in others. The calm presence, the steady movement, the ability to act without noise. That presence is not personality. It is practiced internal authority. Authority comes from consistency, from knowing how you will speak to yourself when things become difficult. If your inner voice collapses under pressure, action collapses. If your inner voice steadies, action follows. This is why leadership begins internally. Your mind is listening at all times. Your body responds to the tone you use inside. Your nervous system takes cues from your language. When you speak calmly, your system stabilizes. When you speak clearly, your system aligns. When you speak decisively, your system prepares. To act, this is not theory. It is physiology. The inner leader understands this, so it speaks with authority, not emotion, with direction, not drama. You begin to notice the difference immediately. When effort rises, the voice inside does not say, "This is too much." It says, "Adjust and continue." When uncertainty appears, it does not say, "What if this fails?" It says, "Focus on execution." When fatigue sets in, it does not say, "Stop." It says, "Maintain form." These are commands. They do not argue. They do not justify. They move you forward. This is self-command in action. The inner leader does not eliminate discomfort. It contextualizes it. Discomfort becomes information, not a signal to quit. Resistance becomes feedback, not an obstacle. This reframing is leadership. Most people wait for motivation to act. Leaders act, and motivation follows. Internally, this means you do not wait to feel ready. You decide readiness through language. You tell yourself what is happening, and your system aligns. The inner leader also knows when to pause. Not out of fear, out of precision. Pauses are strategic. They preserve energy. They sharpen judgment. Leadership is not constant movement. It is intentional movement. This is why self-command feels calm. Calm is not passive. It is controlled intensity. As you practice this internal leadership, you begin to trust yourself differently, not emotionally, structurally. You know how you will respond under pressure. You know you will not abandon direction when discomfort appears. That knowledge builds confidence automatically. Confidence is the byproduct of self-trust. Self-trust is built through consistent internal leadership. You begin to feel it when decisions arise. Less hesitation, less overthinking, more clarity. This clarity is not arrogance. It is alignment. Alignment between thought, language, and action. When alignment is present, energy is not wasted. You move cleanly. You recover faster. You sustain effort longer. This is what makes leaders reliable. Not talent, not charisma. Reliability. Reliability comes from internal command. The inner leader also sets standards. Quietly, firmly. Standards for effort. Standards for behavior. Standards for response. You no longer tolerate internal language that weakens direction. You correct it immediately. Not harshly, precisely. If a thought undermines focus, it is replaced. If a narrative distracts, it is cut short. If an excuse appears, it is acknowledged and dismissed. This is discipline expressed through leadership. You are not fighting yourself. You are guiding yourself. Guidance is firm but fair. The inner leader does not insult. It instructs. It does not threaten. It directs. It does not demand perfection. It demands alignment. As this becomes your default state, you notice external changes, not dramatic at first. Subtle. Others sense your steadiness. Situations respond differently. Pressure affects you less, not because pressure disappeared, because your response changed. This is the foundation of external success. External leadership mirrors internal leadership. If you cannot command yourself, you cannot command outcomes. This is why this stage matters. Transformation peak 1 begins here. The moment you stop negotiating internally. Short lines now. Direct. Clear. Stand up. Focus. Take command. No more waiting for permission. No more hoping circumstances improve. No more explaining why it is difficult. You already know what needs to be done. Do it. Not aggressively. Not emotionally. Deliberately. This is the shift from preparation to execution. You are no longer practicing awareness. You are using it. You are no longer refining language. You are issuing commands. You are no longer protecting focus. You are deploying it. This is leadership activated. Feel the difference. Your posture changes. Your breathing deepens. Your attention locks in. This is not excitement. This is readiness. Readiness does not rush. It moves with precision. The inner leader understands timing. It does not force progress. It maintains direction until progress becomes inevitable. This patience is strength. You are not behind. You are building correctly. The inner leader does not compare. Comparison scatters focus. It tracks only one thing: alignment with direction. Each step taken in alignment reinforces authority. Each decision made deliberately strengthens command. Momentum builds quietly. This is why leaders often appear calm before decisive action. They have already decided internally. The action is simply execution. You begin to notice fewer internal conversations, less debate, less noise, not because you stopped thinking, because thinking became efficient. Efficiency is leadership. You are conserving energy for what matters. This is where the inner leader becomes the default voice. Not through force, through repetition. Each time you choose command over commentary, authority strengthens. Each time you act without internal drama, leadership stabilizes. This becomes who you are, not someone trying to lead, someone who leads. Internally first, externally second. This is the order that works. The inner leader does not need to be perfect. It needs to be present. Presence is what keeps direction intact. When presence is strong, distractions weaken. When presence is steady, pressure loses its edge. You remain. This is control, not control over life. Control over response. Response is the only place power truly exists. And now that power is yours. Stand up. Take command. This is not a temporary mindset. It is a permanent shift. From reacting to directing. From drifting to deciding. From waiting to leading. Leadership begins internally. And now it has begun. The next stage will demand consistency, not intensity. Consistency. Because once command is established, it must be sustained. That is where discipline deepens. And you are ready for it. Chapter 7. Repetition builds reality. Nothing becomes permanent through intensity alone. Intensity starts movement. Repetition creates structure. This is where many people misunderstand growth. They believe change requires constant emotional force. They wait to feel driven. They wait to feel inspired. They wait to feel ready again. But reality is not shaped by what you feel once. It is shaped by what you repeat calmly. What you repeat becomes permanent. Every system inside you learns through repetition, not through explanation, not through excitement, through exposure over time. Your nervous system adapts to patterns. Your mind reinforces what it encounters most often. Your identity stabilizes around what you do consistently. This is why repetition matters more than motivation. Motivation rises and falls. Repetition remains. When you repeat a behavior, you remove uncertainty. When uncertainty fades, resistance weakens. When resistance weakens, action becomes easy. This is how habits form. A habit is not a decision. It is a pathway worn smooth. Each time you choose the same response, the path strengthens. Each time you speak the same internal instruction, the signal sharpens. Each time you act in alignment, the system learns. The system does not ask why. It adapts. Repeat. Repetition does not require force. It requires presence. You show up again. You choose the same direction again. You speak the same language again, even when emotion is absent, especially when emotion is absent. This is where calm persistence replaces emotional highs. Emotional highs feel powerful, but they are unstable. They rely on feeling good to continue. They collapse when effort becomes ordinary. Calm persistence does not collapse. It does not depend on mood. It does not require excitement. It simply continues. This is strength. The most reliable progress happens quietly, without drama, without constant reassessment. You repeat the behavior because it is aligned, not because it feels rewarding in the moment. Over time, the reward changes. At first, repetition feels dull, unsatisfying, too simple to matter. That is because your system is still adjusting. Novelty excites the mind. Consistency trains it. Training always feels less dramatic than novelty, but training produces results. This is why leaders look calm under pressure. They have repeated the same internal responses so often that stability is automatic. They do not rise to the occasion. They default to what they have practiced. You are building that default now. Stay steady. Steadiness is not slowness. It is reliability. When you stay steady, you remove volatility. Volatility wastes energy. Steadiness preserves it. You no longer surge forward and collapse. You no longer restart repeatedly. You no longer question direction. Every time emotion changes, you continue. This continuation rewires identity. Identity is not declared. It is reinforced. Each repetition is a vote, not symbolic, structural. The mind counts repetition, not intention. You may intend to be disciplined, but until discipline is repeated, it remains an idea. You may intend to be confident, but until confidence is practiced through language and action, it remains a wish. Repetition turns intention into structure. Structure turns effort into ease. This is how reality begins to shift. Your external world responds to internal consistency, not to sporadic effort. People trust what is predictable. Systems reward what is stable. Results follow what is sustained. When your behavior becomes consistent, outcomes follow naturally. This is not because the world changed, because you did. The internal habit loop works the same way every time. A cue appears. A response follows. A result reinforces the response. Most people live in loops they never design. You are designing yours consciously now. You decide the response. Then you repeat it until it becomes automatic. At first it feels deliberate. Then it feels normal. Eventually it feels like who you are. That is permanence. Permanence does not mean rigidity. It means reliability. You can adapt without collapsing. You can adjust without losing direction. This flexibility is only possible because repetition created a stable core. Without a core, change becomes chaos. With a core, change becomes evolution. Repeat. When resistance appears, repetition matters more. Resistance is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that repetition is incomplete. The system resists what is unfamiliar. It relaxes into what is repeated. Each time you continue despite resistance, you reduce future resistance. This is why the beginning feels heavy and the middle feels lighter. Not because effort disappeared, because the system adapted. You begin to notice moments where you act without hesitation. Moments where the old debate does not appear. Moments where you move cleanly. These moments are evidence. Evidence that repetition is working. Calm persistence builds trust with yourself. Trust removes friction. When you trust yourself to follow through, you waste less energy negotiating. When you waste less energy, capacity increases. Capacity is what allows growth without burnout. This is the long game. The long game is not glamorous. It is effective. It favors those who can stay steady when others fluctuate. Emotional highs are visible. Calm persistence is invisible. But invisibility is where foundations are built. You are training consistency in language, consistency in response, consistency in behavior. Each repetition reinforces alignment. Alignment reduces effort. Effort becomes sustainable. This is how reality changes quietly, not overnight, not dramatically, inevitably. Because once repetition takes hold, stopping feels harder than continuing. This is when identity locks in. You no longer ask if you are disciplined. You simply act. You no longer ask if you are capable. You execute. You no longer debate direction. You move. That is permanence. Stay steady. Steadiness also teaches patience. Patience is not waiting. It is continuing without urgency. Urgency distorts judgment. Patience preserves accuracy. Accuracy leads to better decisions. Better decisions compound. This compounding is subtle at first, then noticeable, then undeniable. Most people quit before compounding becomes visible. You will not, because you are not relying on emotion. You are relying on structure. Structure holds when emotion fades. This is why repetition builds reality. Reality responds to patterns, not promises. When your actions form a pattern, the world adjusts around it. Opportunities align. Outcomes stabilize. Momentum builds. This is not luck. It is alignment over time. You are aligning your internal language with your behavior with your standards with your direction. This alignment repeated becomes identity. Identity expressed consistently becomes reality. There is no shortcut to this process, but there is no alternative that works. You cannot think your way into permanence. You must repeat your way there. Repeat the language that stabilizes you. Repeat the behaviors that align you. Repeat the responses that strengthen you, even when no one notices, especially when no one notices, because permanence does not require witnesses. It requires consistency. As you continue, something shifts emotionally. The need for validation decreases. The need for reassurance fades. The need for excitement diminishes. Not because you lost passion, because you gained certainty. Certainty is quiet. It does not demand attention. It does not rush to prove itself. It simply continues. This is the state you are building. A state where effort is steady, focus is consistent, direction is clear. From this state, growth accelerates naturally. You stop starting over. You stop resetting. You stop questioning the path. You walk it. Repeat. This word becomes a foundation, not as a command to push harder, as a reminder to continue calmly. Repeat when tired. Repeat when distracted. Repeat when progress feels slow. Because repetition does not require belief. It creates belief. belief formed through experience, is unshakable. You trust what you have done repeatedly, not what you have imagined. This trust becomes self-respect. Self-respect strengthens discipline. Discipline reinforces repetition. This loop becomes self-sustaining. Now consider this. Every day you are repeating something, whether you choose it or not. You repeat reactions. You repeat language. You repeat patterns. The question is not whether repetition is happening. It is whether it is intentional. Now it is. You are no longer repeating unconsciously. You are repeating deliberately. This is where control becomes permanent. You do not need to change everything at once. You only need to repeat the right things consistently. Consistency does the rest. Over time, the effort required decreases. The results increase. This is not magic. It is alignment. Alignment sustained through repetition becomes reality. You will begin to notice the external world responding differently, not because it changed, because you did. Your pace steadies, your confidence stabilizes, your decisions sharpen. Others will describe it as calm strength, but you know what it is. It is repetition. It is staying steady when others surge and crash. It is continuing when emotion fades. It is maintaining direction without constant stimulation. This is why repetition builds reality, because reality respects consistency. Repeat, stay steady. This is not a phase. It is a foundation. And once the foundation is set, the structure above it can rise without collapse. The next stage will test this steadiness. Pressure will increase. Demand will rise. But repetition has prepared you. You are no longer relying on bursts of effort. You are relying on structure. Structure holds, and as this chapter settles, you can feel it. Not excitement, not urgency. Stability, the kind that lasts. The kind that turns intention into outcome. The kind that reshapes reality over time. Repeat, stay steady. This is how permanence is built, and you are already inside the process. Chapter 8, Pressure reveals who you are becoming. Pressure arrives without asking permission. It does not wait for confidence. It does not care about timing. It simply appears. And when it does, something important happens. Pressure does not break you. It exposes you. It reveals the structure you have built beneath the surface. It shows which habits are stable and which were borrowed. It brings your internal leadership into full view. This is not punishment. This is information. Most people misunderstand pressure. They treat it as an enemy. They try to avoid it, escape it, or silence it. But pressure is not here to harm you. It is here to show you who you are becoming. When pressure rises, the noise falls away. There is no room for pretending, no space for performance. Only truth remains. And truth is useful. Pressure strips away excess language. It removes decoration. It forces simplicity. What you say to yourself under pressure is the clearest signal of your identity. Not what you say when things are easy. Not what you say when outcomes are guaranteed. What you say when effort feels heavy. That is the voice in control. This is why pressure matters. Pressure does not create character. It reveals it. You have already been preparing for this stage. Through awareness, through silence, through repetition. Now the environment turns up the intensity, and you meet it. Hold steady. Steadiness under pressure is not passive. It is active containment. It is the ability to feel weight without collapsing under it. To experience tension without becoming reactive. To stay present when urgency tries to take over. Most people lose clarity when pressure rises. Their language fragments. Their attention scatters. Their decisions become rushed. Not because they lack ability, because they lack internal structure. Structure is what pressure tests. If your inner language is unstable, pressure amplifies it. If your inner leadership is steady, pressure sharpens it. This is why calm persistence matters. Pressure rewards those who can stay simple. When pressure increases, complexity becomes a liability. Long explanations slow action. Emotional narration drains energy. The inner leader responds differently. It shortens language. It narrows focus. It prioritizes essentials. Under pressure, the inner leader does not ask, "Why is this happening?" It asks, "What is required next?" That question keeps momentum intact. Stress becomes a training ground when you stop personalizing. Stress is not commentary on your worth. It is demand for capacity. Capacity grows through exposure. Each time you hold steady under pressure, your tolerance increases. Each time you continue despite discomfort, resilience strengthens. Resilience is not toughness. It is adaptability with direction. Pressure forces adaptation. You are not meant to feel comfortable here. You are meant to grow accurate. Accuracy under pressure is leadership. You begin to notice something subtle. The pressure you once avoided now feels familiar. Not pleasant, but manageable. This is progress. The body adapts faster than the mind expects. The nervous system learns quickly when repetition is present. What once triggered panic now triggers focus. What once caused hesitation now prompts action. This is not suppression. It is conditioning. You are conditioning yourself to remain functional under demand. This is a skill, and like all skills, it improves with exposure. Keep going. Stopping under pressure reinforces avoidance. Continuing reinforces capability. Each time you continue, even imperfectly, you send a signal. I can remain present here. That signal builds confidence that no affirmation ever could. Confidence earned under pressure is real. It does not collapse when challenged. This is why pressure is valuable. It forces alignment. Under pressure, false identities fall away. Only practiced behaviors remain. If you have practiced calm language, calm appears. If you have practiced steady action, steadiness emerges. If you have practiced reaction, reaction dominates. Pressure simply reveals the pattern. You are no longer surprised by this. You expect pressure. You welcome it as feedback. Feedback tells you what to refine. If you notice tension rising too quickly, you slow the breath. If you notice the mind racing, you simplify instructions. If you notice fatigue speaking, you adjust pace. This is not weakness. This is leadership in motion. Leadership is the ability to regulate yourself while demand increases. Regulation does not remove effort. It makes effort sustainable. Many people burn out not because effort was too great, but because regulation was absent. They pushed emotionally instead of structure. You are learning a different approach. You do not overpower pressure. You absorb it. Absorption spreads load evenly. It prevents collapse. This is what allows you to continue longer than expected. Pressure tests consistency. Can you maintain standards when comfort disappears? Can you keep language clean when results are uncertain? Can you stay aligned when progress feels slow? These questions are not theoretical. Pressure asks them directly, and your response shapes identity. Every time you meet pressure with steadiness, you reinforce who you are becoming. You become someone who does not panic under demand, someone who does not abandon direction when challenged, someone who remains operational. Operational strength is rare. It is not dramatic. It does not draw attention, but it wins. Transformation peak 2 begins here. The moment pressure peaks and you do not retreat. Short lines now. Clear, grounded, hold steady, breathe, focus. You are not overwhelmed. You are engaged. Pressure is information. Use it. Adjust posture. Adjust pace. Maintain direction. Do not rush. Do not freeze. Continue. This is where many stop, because the mind searches for relief. Relief is not the goal. Alignment is. Relief comes later. Right now you remain. Keep going. The system is adapting as you stay present. Heart rate stabilizes. Breath deepens. Focus narrows. This is resilience forming, not through affirmation, through experience. Each moment you stay steady under pressure expands capacity. Capacity creates confidence. Confidence reduces fear. Fear loses its grip when evidence accumulates. You are collecting evidence now. Evidence that you can function here. Evidence that pressure does not control you. Evidence that your inner leader is active. This evidence matters. It rewrites internal expectations. The next time pressure appears, it will feel familiar, less threatening, more manageable. This is how growth compounds. Pressure today trains strength for tomorrow. This is why avoiding pressure slows progress. Avoidance preserves fragility. Exposure builds durability. Durability is not hardness. It is flexibility without loss of direction. You are flexible now. You adjust without abandoning standard. You respond without reacting. You move without panic. This is control. Pressure no longer feels personal. It feels procedural. A set of demands to be navigated. Navigation requires calm. Calm is not absence of effort. It is presence of control. You are controlling response. You are controlling language. You are controlling pace. These are the only controls that matter. Everything else adjusts around them. This is why leaders appear composed when others react. They are not immune to pressure. They are practiced within it. Practice is what you are doing now. Not once, repeatedly. Every pressure cycle you complete reinforces stability. You are no longer surprised by difficulty. You expect it as part of the process. Expectation removes shock. Shock amplifies stress. Without shock, pressure is manageable. This is maturity. Maturity does not avoid challenge. It integrates it. Integration means difficulty no longer disrupts identity. It strengthens it. You are not asking if you can handle this anymore. You are handling it. That shift matters. It changes how you approach future demands. You no longer hesitate at the edge of difficulty. You step in, not recklessly, deliberately. Deliberate engagement is courage. Courage is not fearlessness. It is steadiness in the presence of fear. Pressure will always produce sensation. That is natural. What changes is interpretation. You no longer interpret pressure as danger. You interpret it as load. Load can be managed. You adjust grip. You distribute weight. You maintain form. Form matters under pressure. Form is structure expressed through action. When form collapses, injury occurs. When form holds, strength increases. Your form is internal. Language, breath, focus, pace. You maintain these. Pressure rises. Form holds. This is how strength is built safely. This is how identity hardens without becoming rigid. Pressure reveals that you are no longer fragile, not invincible, but capable. Capability is enough. You do not need to dominate pressure. You need to remain functional within it. Functionality under pressure is rare. That rarity creates leadership. Others begin to rely on you. Situations stabilize around you, not because you are louder, because you are steadier. Steadiness attracts trust. Trust expands influence. Influence creates opportunity. This chain begins under pressure. Most people collapse before reaching it. You are not, because you prepared. You trained silence. You trained repetition. You trained self-command. Now pressure tests the system, and the system holds. Hold steady. This command is not passive. It is active regulation. It reminds you to keep language simple, to keep breath controlled, to keep movement intentional. It prevents escalation. Escalation wastes energy. Energy preserved is energy available. Available energy sustains effort. Sustained effort wins. Keep going, not faster, not harder, consistently. Consistency under pressure is mastery. Mastery does not rush to finish. It completes cleanly. You are learning to complete under demand. This skill transfers everywhere. Work, decisions, relationships, leadership moments. Pressure will appear in all of them. Now you know how to meet it. Not with resistance, with regulation. Not with avoidance, with presence. This presence changes outcomes. Even when results are delayed, progress is real. Progress under pressure builds self-respect. Self-respect strengthens discipline. Discipline stabilizes identity. Identity shapes reality. This chapter is not about surviving pressure. It is about using it to refine language, using it to sharpen focus, using it to reveal strength. You are no longer afraid of what pressure might show. You know what it will reveal. Someone steady, someone capable, someone becoming stronger through demand. This realization is powerful. It removes hesitation before challenges. It removes doubt during effort. It removes collapse after difficulty. You recover faster now. Recovery is not weakness. It is efficiency. Efficient recovery allows repeated exposure. Repeated exposure builds resilience. Resilience changes how you see yourself. You no longer see yourself as someone who hopes to endure. You see yourself as someone who does. This identity shift is quiet but permanent. Pressure will return. It always does. But it will meet a different version of you. One who holds steady. One who keeps going. One who understands that pressure is not a threat. It is confirmation. Confirmation that you are no longer, that you have structure now. Language, leadership, repetition. Pressure is simply revealing the work you have already done. And it will continue to reveal it. Each time you remain steady. Each time you continue. Each time you do not retreat. You reinforce the truth. Pressure does not break you. It exposes who you are becoming. And what it exposes now is strength that lasts. The next stage will demand even more clarity, even more consistency, even more self-command. But pressure has already prepared you. You are not guessing anymore. You know what happens when things get hard. You stay steady. You keep going. And that is why you will continue to rise. Chapter 9. You no longer negotiate with weakness. There is a moment when something ends quietly. No announcement, no dramatic shift, just a clear internal line that is no longer crossed. This is the moment negotiation stops. Weakness does not disappear all at once. It loses influence. And influence is what mattered all along. You have noticed it already. The hesitation that used to stretch decisions now feels unnecessary. The internal debate that once delayed action now feels redundant. The emotional resistance that once felt heavy now feels distant. This is not because difficulty vanished. It is because identity clarified. Indecision ends when identity is clear. As long as identity is uncertain, the mind negotiates. It weighs options endlessly. It seeks comfort, approval, certainty. It asks permission from fear. But when identity stabilizes, negotiation becomes inefficient. You already know who you are being, so decisions simplify. The inner leader no longer asks, "Do I feel like this?" It asks, "Is this aligned?" Alignment answers faster than emotion ever could. This is the shift. Internal negotiation is replaced by internal authority. Authority does not argue. It decides. Decision is not force. It is finality. Finality removes friction. Friction is what drained you before. Not effort, not responsibility. The constant back and forth, the emotional bargaining, the repeated reconsideration. All of that consumed energy without producing movement. Now that energy stays with you. You no longer negotiate with thoughts that weaken direction. You acknowledge them, then proceed. This is not denial. It is prioritization. Not every internal voice deserves equal weight. Some voices are outdated. Some are protective, not directive. Some were useful once and are no longer relevant. You are not obligated to listen to all of them. You choose leadership. Leadership requires clarity. Clarity requires decision. The moment you decide, something shifts internally. Muscles respond. Attention narrows. Energy organizes. This is not psychological. It is physiological. The body moves more easily when direction is clear. This is why acting feels lighter now. You are not pushing harder. You are negotiating less. Negotiation creates drag. Each time you debate with weakness, you reinforce it. Each time you entertain excuses, you extend them. Each time you pause for reassurance, you delay momentum. You are done with that. Not emotionally, structurally. Weakness no longer gets the microphone. Weakness is not evil. It is outdated. It speaks from old patterns, old fears, old limits. You do not need to destroy it. You simply stop consulting it. This is maturity. Mature leadership does not fight internal resistance. It bypasses it. You have noticed how quickly you act now. Once a decision is made, there is less internal noise, less justification, less emotional preparation. You decide, then you move. Movement seals decision. Without movement, decision remains abstract. Movement does not require perfection. It requires commitment. Commitment simplifies action. When you are committed, you do not wait for optimal conditions. You adjust within the conditions you have. This adaptability is authority. Authority is the ability to operate without ideal circumstances. You are operating now. Faster does not mean rushed. Cleaner does not mean careless. It means less internal resistance. Resistance used to appear as doubt. Now it appears as information. Information does not stop you. It informs adjustment. This is a critical shift. You are no longer asking whether you can handle difficulty. You are handling it. You are no longer asking whether you should proceed. You are proceeding. This does not mean you ignore reality. It means you do not negotiate with fear. Fear presents scenarios. Leadership selects action. Selection ends debate. Debate prolongs uncertainty. Uncertainty drains energy. You have removed the drain. Now energy flows into execution. This is why your actions feel cleaner. Clean action is action without emotional residue. You do what is required. You complete the step. You move on. No self-criticism. No self-congratulation. Just execution. This neutrality is strength. It allows consistency. Consistency builds trust. Trust in yourself reduces hesitation further. This becomes a reinforcing loop. The more you decide and move, the more you trust your decisions. The more you trust your decisions, the less you negotiate. The less you negotiate, the faster you act. This is momentum. Momentum is not speed. It is continuity. Continuity is created by decisive action. This decisiveness changes how you experience effort. Effort no longer feels like conflict. It feels like engagement. You are engaged now. Engagement absorbs attention fully. There is no space for doubt to expand. Doubt shrinks when action begins. This is why waiting intensifies fear, and movement dissolves it. You have learned this through experience. Each time you acted despite hesitation, hesitation weakened. Each time you moved without full certainty, certainty followed. Certainty follows action. It does not precede it. This understanding is liberating. You no longer wait to feel sure. You decide to act, and clarity emerges through movement. This is leadership in motion. Leaders are not the absence of doubt. They are the presence of decision. Decision transforms doubt into direction. You have also noticed something else. Your emotional recovery is faster now. When things do not go perfectly, you do not collapse. You adjust. You continue. Adjustment is a sign of authority. Authority does not cling to outcomes. It maintains direction. This is why setbacks no longer derail you. They are processed quickly, information extracted, course corrected. Then you move. Move. This command is simple because simplicity is powerful. Complexity invites negotiation. Simplicity invites action. You no longer complicate decisions with unnecessary questions. You ask what matters. Is this aligned? Is this required now? If yes, you act. This reduces emotional resistance. Resistance feeds on ambiguity. Remove ambiguity, resistance weakens. You are removing ambiguity through identity. You know who you are becoming. That knowledge filters options automatically. You no longer consider paths that do not align. They simply fall away. This saves energy. Energy saved becomes capacity. Capacity allows you to handle more without strain. This is why you feel stronger without feeling aggressive. Strength does not require tension. It requires alignment. Alignment reduces internal conflict. Conflict was the exhausting part. Now when weakness appears, it does not create debate. It creates awareness. You notice it. You acknowledge it. You proceed anyway. This is not suppression. It is prioritization. You prioritize direction over comfort. Comfort is not the enemy. It is just no longer in charge. You will rest when rest aligns. You will pause when pause is strategic. But you will not negotiate with weakness to avoid effort. This distinction matters. Weakness seeks relief. Leadership seeks alignment. Relief is temporary. Alignment compounds. You have chosen compounding. As a result, your actions feel cleaner. Clean action does not leave residue. It does not require explanation afterward. It does not invite regret. You do what you said you would do. That alone changes how you see yourself. Self-respect grows quietly. Self-respect does not need affirmation. It needs consistency. Consistency is built through decision followed by movement. This is why indecision ends here. Not because life became simple. Because you did. You simplified internally. You removed unnecessary voices. You reduced internal debate. You clarified standards. Standards reduce choice. Reduced choice increases speed. Speed executed with clarity is power. This power does not feel chaotic. It feels controlled. Controlled power is leadership. Others may notice it. They may comment on your decisiveness, on your calm, but that is secondary. The real change is internal. You trust yourself more now. Trust reduces fear. Fear reduction increases effectiveness. This is the chain. The inner leader no longer needs to prove authority. Authority is expressed through action. You decide. You move. Over time, this becomes automatic. Decision and movement merge. You do not pause to debate. You pause only to assess. Assessment is quick. Decision follows. Movement continues. This efficiency compounds. Your days feel fuller, not heavier. Your effort feels focused, not scattered. Your progress feels real, not imagined. This is the outcome of internal authority. Weakness still exists. It always will. But it no longer negotiates terms. It presents itself. You acknowledge it. You continue. This is leadership maturity, not eliminating weakness, removing its influence. Influence is what determines behavior. You have shifted influence internally. Now leadership drives action. As this chapter settles, you may notice a sense of quiet confidence, not excitement, not intensity, certainty. Certainty does not rush. It moves deliberately. You are no longer asking if you are capable of more. You are doing more. You are no longer waiting for readiness. You are creating it through action. This is irreversible. Once you stop negotiating with weakness, you cannot return to indecision. You may pause. You may resent. You may adjust. But you will not drift, because drifting requires indecision. And indecision no longer has authority. You decide. You move. This is how progress accelerates without burnout. This is how leadership stabilizes. This is how identity expresses itself through behavior. The next stage will test completion, not starting, finishing, because decision and movement mean little if they are not followed through. You are ready for that test, because you no longer negotiate with weakness. And that changes everything. Chapter 10, Finish what you start. Starting feels powerful, finishing feels quiet. And that is why most people fall in love with beginnings and avoid ending. Beginnings promise possibility. Endings demand integrity. But completion is where identity is forged. Completion creates self-trust, not imagined confidence, not borrowed belief, earned certainty. You have started many things before. Ideas, plans, efforts fueled by intention. But intention alone never built a life. Follow-through does. Every unfinished task leaves a small fracture in self-trust. Not dramatic, subtle. A quiet message repeats inside. You do not always do what you say you will do. That message accumulates, not as shame, as hesitation. Hesitation weakens authority. This chapter is where that pattern ends. Finishing is not about perfection. It is about alignment between word and action. When you finish what you start, you tell yourself the truth. And the mind listens. Finish. Completion closes loops. Open loops drain energy. They linger in the background of attention. They demand resolution. Each unfinished effort occupies mental space. Each incomplete promise fragments focus. This fragmentation is exhausting. Completion restores order. When you finish, the system relaxes, not because effort ended, because integrity was honored. Integrity is not moral. It is structural. Integrity means parts align. What you intend aligns with what you do. What you say aligns with what you complete. This alignment is confidence. Confidence does not come from affirming strength. It comes from proving reliability to yourself. Self-trust is built one finished task at a time. This is why finishing matters more than starting. Starting excites the mind. Finishing trains it. Training creates predictability. Predictability creates trust. Trust removes resistance. When you trust yourself to finish, beginning becomes lighter, because you know where it leads. Most people struggle not because tasks are too hard, but because they do not trust themselves to complete. So they hesitate, they overthink, they delay. You are reversing that pattern. Follow through. Follow through is discipline expressed as identity. It is the moment when discomfort appears, and you continue anyway. Not emotionally, structurally. The urge to stop is natural. Fatigue appears. Boredom appears. Doubt appears. Finishing is the choice to proceed despite these signals. Not recklessly, deliberately. Deliberate continuation is strength. Each time you follow through, something internal shifts. The voice of doubt weakens. The voice of authority strengthens. You are teaching yourself a lesson that cannot be unlearned. I do what I decide to do. This lesson changes everything. It changes how you approach challenges. It changes how you see effort. It changes how others experience you. But more importantly, it changes how you experience yourself. Completion builds evidence. Evidence is stronger than belief. Belief can be imagined. Evidence is lived. Each finished action is evidence of capability. Over time, evidence accumulates, and confidence stabilizes. This confidence is not loud. It is calm. It does not need reassurance. It does not seek approval. It knows. You begin to notice fewer internal questions, less second-guessing, less emotional negotiation, because the answer has already been provided by experience. You have finished before. You can finish again. This knowledge is grounding. Finishing also sharpens focus. When you commit to finishing, distractions lose appeal. You are no longer looking for escape. You are oriented toward completion. Completion simplifies decision-making. Is this aligned with finishing? If not, it waits. This clarity conserves energy. Energy conserved increases endurance. Endurance allows sustained effort. Sustained effort completes. This is the cycle. Finishing does not require speed. It requires continuity. Continuity under discomfort. Most people stop when progress becomes invisible, when rewards are delayed, when novelty fades. This is where finishing matters most. The middle of any process is quiet. No applause, no excitement, just work. This is where identity is reinforced. Who you are in the middle determines who you become at the end. The end is not special. It is simply the result of not stopping. This reframing matters. You stop waiting for the finish line to feel meaningful. The meaning is in continuation. Continuation is a decision repeat. TED, follow through. Follow through also teaches patience. Patience is not waiting passively. It is working without immediate reward. Delayed gratification is essential. The reward for finishing is not always immediate success. Often it is something deeper. Self-respect. Self-respect grows quietly. It does not announce itself. It stabilizes behavior. When you respect yourself, you do not abandon your own commitments. You do not sabotage progress. You do not undermine direction. Self-respect protects momentum. Momentum is fragile without it. This is why unfinished tasks weigh heavily. They erode self-respect, not dramatically. Gradually, you are restoring it now, one finish at a time. This does not mean you never adjust goals. Adjustment is not quitting. Quitting is abandoning without resolution. Adjustment is deliberate redirection. The difference is clarity. When you choose to stop something consciously, you close the loop. When you drift away unconsciously, the loop remains open. Open loops create doubt. Closed loops create trust. Finishing closes loops. This is why finishing feels relieving. Not because effort ends, because tension resolves. Tension comes from misalignment. Completion restores alignment. You are learning to value this feeling. Not relief from effort, relief from fragmentation. Fragmentation scatters energy. Alignment concentrates it. Concentrated energy is power. This is quiet power. As you practice finishing, you notice something important. You stop romanticizing new beginnings. You stop chasing fresh starts because you are capable of seeing things through. Seeing things through changes how you choose. You choose fewer things, but you commit more deeply. Depth replaces novelty. Depth produces mastery. Mastery does not come from trying many things. It comes from finishing meaningful things. This is where confidence becomes earned. Earned confidence does not collapse under challenge. It does not depend on praise. It rests on experience. You know what it feels like to finish when it is difficult. You know you can endure the middle. You know you can complete. This knowledge cannot be taken from you. It is internal. This is why leaders finish. Not everything, but what they commit to. Commitment without completion is empty. Completion gives commitment weight. Weight creates gravity. Gravity pulls opportunities toward you. Not magically, structurally. People trust those who finish. Systems reward reliability. Reliability is built through follow-through. You are becoming reliable to yourself first. This is the correct order. Many seek external trust without internal trust. That never holds. Internal reliability must come first. Follow through. This command applies to small things as much as large ones. Small finishes matter. Finishing small tasks trains the system. It reinforces the pattern. The mind does not distinguish scale. It recognizes completion. Completion is completion. Do not underestimate small finishes. They build momentum. Momentum makes larger finishes possible. This is compounding. You finish one thing, then another, then another. Soon finishing feels natural, not heroic, normal. This normalization is powerful. It removes drama from effort. You no longer need to hype yourself to act. You simply do. Doing completes. Completing reinforces identity. Identity stabilizes behavior. Behavior produces results. This chain becomes automatic. You also learn something else through finishing. You learn restraint, the ability to stay with discomfort without escaping, the ability to tolerate boredom without distraction, the ability to remain focused without stimulation. These capacities are rare. They are also decisive. Most people abandon effort because they cannot tolerate the quiet stretch before completion. You can, because you trained silence, you trained repetition, you trained self-command. Now you train completion. Completion integrates all previous stages. Awareness notices distraction. Silence removes noise. Repetition builds habit. Pressure tests stability. Authority decides direction. Finishing seals it. Finishing is the final act of leadership. Leadership without completion is potential. Leadership with completion is impact. This is why finishing changes how you see yourself. You no longer describe yourself as someone trying. You experience yourself as someone who finishes. This identity shift is subtle but profound. It affects future choices. When you consider starting something new, you ask a different question. Am I willing to finish this? This question filters options. It protects focus. It prevents overcommitment. Overcommitment leads to fragmentation. Fragmentation undermines completion. You are learning to commit wisely. Wisdom grows with experience. Experience comes from finishing. This is the loop you are building now. Finish. Follow through. Not to prove anything to others. To align with yourself. Alignment creates calm. Calm creates clarity. Clarity creates effectiveness. Effectiveness produces results. Results reinforce confidence. Confidence earned is stable. This stability is what allows leadership to expand. Others sense it. They may not know why they trust you, but they do, because your words match your actions. That match is rare, and rarity creates value. You are building value internally. This value cannot be taken away. It travels with you into every situation. You do not need to announce it. It is evident. As this chapter settles, you may feel a quiet resolve. Not excitement, not urgency. Resolve. Resolve is commitment without noise. Resolve continues when no one is watching. Resolve finishes. I rise. This affirmation is no longer aspirational. It is descriptive. You rise because you finish. You rise because you follow through. You rise because you honor alignment. This is not a phase. It is a standard. Once set, standards do not require motivation. They require consistency. You are consistent now. Not perfectly, reliably. Reliability builds trust. Trust builds confidence. Confidence supports leadership. This is how you move forward now. One commitment, one follow-through, one completion at a time. The next stage will demand endurance, not starting strength, finishing strength. You are ready because you no longer abandon yourself mid-process. You finish what you start, and that changes who you are. Quietly, permanently. I rise. Chapter 11. You are becoming dangerous in control. There is a point in development where strength stops being loud, where confidence stops asking to be seen, where power settles into something calm, precise, and controlled. This is that point. You are not becoming dangerous because you are aggressive. You are becoming dangerous because you are disciplined. A disciplined mind is unstoppable, not because it never struggled, but because it no longer reacts blindly. Reaction was the old pattern. Impulse, emotion-led movement, immediate release. Response is different. Response is chosen, measured, aligned. You feel the difference now. When pressure appears, you do not tense automatically. When challenge arises, you do not rush to defend. When uncertainty shows itself, you do not collapse into noise. You pause, you assess, you decide. This pause is not hesitation. It is control. Control is what makes power dangerous. Uncontrolled power burns itself out. Controlled power compounds. You are no longer driven by every stimulus. You are driven by direction. Direction is calm. Calm is not passive. Calm is compressed intensity. Inside calm is readiness. You have trained for this without realizing it. Through silence, through repetition, through finishing, through pressure, all of it refined your internal response. Now something has changed. You are no longer surprised by your own reactions. You know how you will respond when things tighten. You know what language you will use when difficulty rises. That predictability is strength. Strength does not come from having no emotions. It comes from not being owned by them. Emotions still appear. Fear still whispers. Fatigue still signals. But none of them decide anymore. You decide. Focus. Focus is the gateway to control. When focus is scattered, energy leaks. When focus is steady, energy concentrates. Concentrated energy moves things. This is why distraction is dangerous. Not because it is wrong, because it weakens force. You no longer allow distraction to lead. You notice it. You release it. You return to the task. This return is automatic now. Automatic focus is trained, not forced. You trained it through repetition, through saying no to noise, through staying with effort longer than comfort allowed. Now focus feels natural. Natural focus feels powerful. Power that does not need to prove itself. This is the kind of power that unsettles others quietly, because it cannot be manipulated easily. It does not react on cue. It does not break under pressure. It waits. It watches. It moves deliberately. This is why you are becoming dangerous. Not reckless, not volatile. Dangerous in the sense of effective. Effective people change environments. They change outcomes. They shift momentum. They do this not through force, but through consistency. Consistency backed by discipline. Discipline is not restriction. It is freedom from impulse. Impulse demands immediate satisfaction. Discipline delays gratification in favor of alignment. Alignment creates momentum. Momentum sustained becomes inevitability. This is the path you are on. You are no longer chasing intensity. You are maintaining control. Control allows you to apply pressure gradually. Gradually is how systems change. Sudden force breaks things. Sustained pressure reshapes them. You are reshaping yourself, and that reshaping is nearly complete. Transformation peak 3 begins here. Short lines, clear commands, no excess, focus, breathe, stay present. You are not reacting. You are responding. This distinction matters. Reaction is borrowed behavior. Response is own behavior. Own behavior builds authority. Authority is felt, not announced. You do not need to explain yourself anymore. Your presence explains enough. When others escalate, you stabilize. When others rush, you slow. When others panic, you hold structure. This contrast is powerful. It creates gravity. People begin to orient around you. Situations adjust to your steadiness, not because you demand it, because stability attracts reliance. Reliance is leadership. Leadership does not need volume. It needs reliability. You are reliable now, not perfectly, consistently. Consistency under pressure is rare, and rarity creates influence. Influence allows impact. Impact is what makes power dangerous. You are also noticing something internal. The urge to prove yourself has faded. The need for validation has softened. The desire to explain has weakened. These urges belong to an earlier stage. They were signals of uncertainty. Certainty removes them. Certainty does not shout. It acts. You act now with fewer words. Cleaner movement. Clearer intent. Intent is the core of disciplined power. Without intent, effort scatters. With intent, effort aligns. Aligned effort compounds. You are compounding now. This compounding is quiet, invisible to most, but unstoppable, because it is internal first. No external force can disrupt an internally aligned system. This is why disciplined people endure where others collapse. Not because they feel stronger, because they are structured stronger. Structure absorbs shock. Structure redistributes load. Structure maintains form under stress. Your inner structure is strong now. Language is precise. Attention is controlled. Behavior is aligned. This triad is power. Power without chaos. Chaos wastes energy. You do not waste energy anymore. You conserve it. You deploy it intentionally. This is dangerous power. Dangerous to stagnation. Dangerous to limitation. Dangerous to old versions of yourself. Those versions cannot survive this level of control. They fade naturally. You no longer need to fight them. They simply cannot keep up. Lead. Leadership now is not about others. It is about direction. You lead yourself through complexity, through boredom, through difficulty. You do not abandon the process when it becomes quiet. You understand quiet is where work deepens. This understanding separates you. Most people confuse quiet with stagnation. You recognize it as consolidation. Consolidation makes strength durable. Durable strength lasts. This is why you are no longer rushed by timeline. You are not hurried by comparison. You are not distracted by noise. You are operating on your own rhythm. Rhythm aligned with consistency. Consistency aligned with identity. Identity aligned with direction. This alignment is rare, and it is dangerous to anything that stands in its way. Not violently, inevitably. You also notice how quickly you recover now. When something goes wrong, you do not spiral. You correct. You continue. Recovery speed is a sign of mastery. Mastery is not absence of error. It is efficiency of correction. Efficient correction preserves momentum. Momentum maintained over time reshapes reality. This is the deeper truth. You are not forcing success. You are becoming someone success aligns with. Alignment does the work. Others will call it discipline. Some will call it confidence. Some will call it calm strength. You know what it is. Control. control over attention, control over language, control over response. This control is not rigid. It is adaptive. You can shift without breaking, adjust without collapsing, respond without reacting. This flexibility is strength. Rigid systems shatter. Flexible systems endure. You endure now. Endurance is not endurance of pain. It is endurance of process. Process is what you trust now. You no longer need constant reassurance that it is working. You feel the stability internally. Stability is unmistakable. It shows up as calm in moments that used to trigger you, as patience where you once rushed, as focus where you once scattered. These changes are subtle but decisive. They mark the difference between effort and mastery. You are no longer just working hard. You are working correctly. Correct work compounds faster. This is why your progress will begin to outpace expectation. Not because you are doing more, because you are wasting less. Less wasted emotion, less wasted attention, less wasted energy. Everything moves toward direction. Direction is clear now. You know what matters. You know what does not. You know when to act and when to wait. Waiting is not avoidance. It is timing. Timing is leadership. Leaders do not move at every signal. They move at the right one. You are learning to sense that. Sensing comes from presence. Presence comes from discipline. Discipline brings you back to now. Now is where power exists, not in the past, not in imagined futures. Here, focused, calm, ready. This readiness does not feel dramatic. It feels grounded. Grounded strength does not fluctuate wildly. It holds. This holding is what makes you dangerous. Dangerous to distraction. Dangerous to complacency. Dangerous to regression. You cannot go back to unconscious reaction now. Once control is experienced, chaos loses appeal. You may still feel emotion, but you will not be ruled by it. You may still face pressure, but you will not fracture. You may still encounter doubt, but you will not obey it. This is irreversible, because discipline has rewired your default response. Your default response is now leadership. Leadership of self. And self-led people change environment. They bring order. They bring clarity. They bring momentum. Others feel it. They may not understand it, but they respect it, because control commands respect, not through force, through consistency. As this chapter settles, recognize what has happened. You did not become louder. You became steadier. You did not become rigid. You became precise. You did not become aggressive. You became effective. This is the danger. A calm, disciplined mind that cannot be easily distracted, discouraged, or diverted. This mind does not burn out. It does not panic. It does not quit. It adjusts. It continues. It leads. Focus. Lead. These are no longer commands you borrow. They are behaviors you embody. You are becoming dangerous. Not to others, to limitation itself. And limitation knows it. The final stage approaches. Not a beginning. A completion, where everything you have built locks into permanence, where identity becomes standard, and standards no longer require effort. They simply are. You are ready for that stage now, because control is no longer something you practice. It is who you are. Chapter 12. Reality aligns with who you speak yourself into being. There is a moment when effort no longer feels like effort, not because work disappears, but because resistance does. This is that moment. You have reached the point where alignment replaces force, where direction replaces struggle, where reality begins to respond, not because you pushed harder, but because you became clearer. Reality follows identity, always has, always will. What changes now is that you understand it. For most of life, reality felt external. Something to fight, something to chase, something to endure. But you now see the pattern. Reality did not resist you. It mirrored you. It responded to the standards you set internally. It followed the language you repeated. It aligned with the identity you reinforced. And now that identity has changed. Not dramatically, not suddenly, deliberately. You no longer speak to yourself casually. You no longer describe yourself loosely. You no longer tolerate internal language that contradicts direction, because you learned something fundamental. Who you speak yourself into being determines how reality organizes around you. This is not mysticism. It is structure. Identity shapes behavior. Behavior shapes consistency. Consistency shapes outcomes. Outcomes appear to be external, but they are the final expression of an internal process. You did not force this process. You aligned with it. Force creates friction. Alignment removes it. This is why things now feel different. You still work. You still apply effort. You still face challenge, but something essential is gone. Internal conflict. You are no longer fighting yourself while trying to move forward. That alone changes everything. Stand firm. Standing firm does not mean standing still. It means holding identity steady while circumstances change. Before, your identity shifted with results. Success made you confident. Difficulty made you question. Now, identity holds regardless. Results rise and fall. You remain. This stability is what reality responds to. Reality reorganizes around what is consistent. Inconsistency creates noise. Noise delays outcomes. Consistency creates clarity. Clarity accelerates alignment. You are consistent now. Not perfect. Stable. Stability is enough. You no longer need to convince yourself who you are. You demonstrate it through behavior. You speak internally with authority. You act externally with alignment. That loop is closed. This is why confidence now feels different. It is not emotional. It is structural. It does not rise dramatically. It does not collapse suddenly. It holds. Holding is power. Power that does not fluctuate wildly becomes dependable. Dependability changes how the world responds to you. Opportunities appear more naturally. Decisions feel clearer. Momentum sustains itself. Not because luck arrived, because alignment did. You are aligned with yourself. This alignment reduces wasted effort. Before, much of your energy went into managing doubt, explaining hesitation, recovering from inconsistency. Now that energy is free. It goes into execution, into refinement, into continuation. This efficiency compounds. Compounding is quiet at first, then unmistakable. You may not see dramatic shifts immediately, but you will notice patterns. Things that once felt heavy feel manageable. Situations that once triggered reaction feel navigable. Challenges that once felt personal feel procedural. This is mastery emerging. Mastery is not dominant. It is calm capability. Capability grounded in identity. Identity no longer borrowed from results. Identity rooted in standards. Standards you now uphold internally. This is the final seal. The seal between who you say you are and who you live as. Before, there may have been gaps. Small contradictions. Moments where language and behavior misaligned. Those gaps are closing. You speak clearly. You act accordingly. Reality responds. Move forward. Moving forward now does not feel rushed. It feels inevitable. Inevitable does not mean easy. It means aligned. Aligned paths resist less. Resistance still exists, but it no longer confuses you. You know what resistance is now. It is not a verdict. It is feedback. Feedback tells you where strength is forming. You no longer interpret resistance as a signal to stop. You interpret it as confirmation that alignment is being tested. Tests do not exist to break alignment. They exist to strengthen it. You have passed many of them already. Silence tested your restraint. Repetition tested your patience. Pressure tested your stability. Completion tested your integrity. Each test refined identity. Now identity is stable enough to shape reality consistently. This is the point where many people look back and say it suddenly worked. But you know better. Nothing was sudden. It was cumulative. Every internal correction mattered. Every repeated phrase mattered. Every moment you chose steadiness over reaction mattered. They stacked, and now the structure stands. You are no longer trying to become someone. You are maintaining who you are. Maintenance requires less energy than construction. This is why life feels lighter. Not because responsibility vanished, because internal drag did. You are not carrying contradictions anymore. Contradictions are heavy. Alignment is light. Lightness allows speed without rush. It allows endurance without strain. This is sustainable success. Sustainability is what most people miss. They reach outcomes but cannot hold them. They rise quickly but fall just as fast because identity did not stabilize first. You stabilized identity. Now outcomes can last. Reality trusts consistency. It does not reward bursts. It aligns with patterns. Your pattern is now clear. You show up. You act deliberately. You finish. You regulate under pressure. You speak with authority. That pattern signals reliability. Reliability attracts responsibility. Responsibility expands influence. Influence creates impact. Impact changes reality. This is the chain. You are inside it now. You no longer need to imagine the future version of yourself. You are living as them. The future no longer feels abstract. It feels like continuation. Continuation is powerful. It removes anxiety about what comes next. You know how you will handle it because you know who you are now. That knowledge is grounding. Grounding stabilizes emotion. Stabilized emotion improves judgment. Improved judgment leads to better decisions. Better decisions accumulate. Accumulation reshapes life. This is how reality aligned. Not through force, through identity consistency. You did not overpower the world. You aligned yourself, so the world no longer resisted you unnecessarily. Resistance still appears where growth is required, but it no longer defines the path. The path is clear. Stand firm. Standing firm now means something deeper. It means you do not abandon standards when things improve. You do not relax discipline when comfort arrives. You do not drift when attention fades. Comfort is a test, too. Many lose alignment when things get easier. You will not, because your identity is no longer reactive. It is internal. Internal identity does not depend on circumstances. Circumstances change. Identity remains. This permanence is what you were building all along. Not motivation, not intensity. Permanence. Permanence does not mean stagnation. It means foundation. From a strong foundation, growth can continue without collapse. You are standing on that foundation now. And from here, progress accelerates naturally. Not because you rush, because you waste less time restarting. Restarts are costly. You no longer restart. You continue. Continuation is momentum. Momentum aligned with clarity is unstoppable. This is why you feel ready. Not excited, not anxious. Ready. Readiness is calm. Calm readiness does not seek validation. It does not overthink timing. It does not wait for permission. It moves forward when alignment says move. Move forward. This command now feels natural. You are not forcing yourself. You are following direction. Direction established internally. This is leadership fully integrated. Leadership without noise. Leadership without performance. Leadership as default behavior. Others may call it confidence. Some may call it discipline. Some may call it presence. You do not need to name it. You live it. And living it changes outcomes. You will notice that you handle complexity better. You see through distractions faster. You choose more effectively. These are signs of alignment. Alignment sharpens perception. Perception guides action. Action produces results. Results reinforce identity. Identity deepens alignment. This loop is now self-sustaining. You do not need to push it. You simply maintain it. Maintenance requires awareness and honesty. You already have both. You are aware of your internal language. You are honest about your standard. Honesty protects alignment. Dishonesty creates internal fractures. You do not fracture anymore. You correct. Correction is quick, efficient, non-dramatic. You adjust language. You adjust pace. You continue. This is mature self-leadership. Self-leadership scales. It scales into work, into relationships, into responsibility. Because wherever you go, identity goes with you. Reality responds to that identity consistently. Not because reality is generous, because reality is patterned. It responds to signal. You are sending clear signals now. Signals of steadiness, signals of follow-through, signals of calm authority. Those signals attract aligned responses. Misaligned situations fade. Aligned ones strengthen. This sorting happens naturally. You do not force it. You simply maintain who you are. Maintenance is easier than creation. This is why life now feels more manageable even as demands increase. Demands increase because capacity has increased. Capacity increases because alignment reduced waste. Waste came from internal conflict. Conflict is resolved. Resolution frees energy. Energy fuels progress. Progress stabilizes identity. Identity aligns reality. This is the full cycle. You are living inside it now. This final chapter is not about doing more. It is about recognizing what has already been done internally. You are no longer someone trying to change. You are someone maintaining standards. Standards define outcomes. Outcomes reinforce standards. This feedback loop is stable. Stability is rare, and rare structures reshape environment. You will notice that challenges no longer intimidate you the same way. They still require effort, but they do not threaten identity. When identity is secure, Challenges become tasks. Tasks can be handled. Handled tasks build confidence. Confidence encourages engagement. Engagement deepens skill. Skill improves outcomes. Outcomes align reality further. This is mastery unfolding. Mastery does not arrive loudly. It settles. Settling is permanent. You are settled now, not in comfort, in clarity. Clarity removes confusion. Confusion was the real obstacle. Without confusion, direction is obvious. You no longer ask, "Who should I be here?" You already know. You respond from that knowing. Response is clean. Clean responses move systems forward. Systems include people, projects, situations. They all respond to clarity. Clarity is your advantage now. Others may not understand it. That does not matter. Understanding is not required for alignment to work. Only consistency is. You are consistent. Consistency makes outcomes predictable. Predictability builds trust. Trust expands opportunity. Opportunity tests capacity. Capacity grows through alignment. This cycle continues. It does not exhaust you. It strengthens you. This is sustainable growth. Growth that does not require burnout. Burnout comes from misalignment. Misalignment is gone. So, you still rest. You still pause. You still recover. But recovery is intentional, not escapist. Rest supports direction now. It does not replace it. This distinction matters. You are no longer escaping effort. You are managing energy. Energy management is leadership. Leadership of self. Self-led people do not need external control. They do not need pressure to act. They move because alignment tells them to. This autonomy is powerful. Autonomy is freedom with responsibility. You are capable of both now. This is why reality aligned. Reality respects responsibility. Responsibility signals maturity. Maturity attracts trust. Trust opens doors. Doors open because alignment prepared you. Preparation is complete, not because there is nothing left to do, because there is nothing left to fix internally. You will still refine. You will still improve, but you will not rebuild from scratch again. That stage is over. Now you build forward. Forward does not mean faster. It means clearer. Clear direction reduces wasted movement. Wasted movement was exhausting. Now movement is efficient. Efficiency compounds results. Results reinforce belief. Belief stabilizes identity. Identity shapes reality. You are inside the system now. This is not theory. It is experience. You feel it in how you respond to stress, in how you complete tasks, in how you speak internally. These are not surface changes. They are structural. Structural change lasts. This is why this transformation is permanent. You cannot unknow alignment. Once you feel the difference between force and clarity, you cannot return to struggle. You may face difficulty, but you will not be lost. Lostness is what alignment removed. You always know your next step now, even when the path is long. Long paths do not intimidate aligned people. They understand progress is cumulative. They do not rush to finish life. They continue living it correctly. Correct living produces correct outcomes over time. Time is now an ally, not a threat. Time rewards consistency. You are consistent. This is why you feel ready for the future. Not because you predict it, because you trust yourself to meet it. Trust is the final seal. Self-trust allows you to move forward without anxiety. Anxiety came from uncertainty about self-response. That uncertainty is gone. You know how you respond now. You respond with clarity, with steadiness, with discipline. Discipline not as restriction. Discipline as alignment. Alignment is freedom. Freedom to act without internal conflict. Freedom to choose without fear. Freedom to continue without collapse. This is the freedom you earned. No one gave it to you. You built it. One internal correction at a time. One repeated phrase at a time. One finished commitment at a time. One steady response at a time. And now it stands. Stand firm. This does not mean resisting change. It means maintaining identity while change occurs. Change will come. Growth demands it. But identity will not fracture. It will adapt. Adaptation without loss of self is mastery. You are a master of self now. Not perfect. Aligned. Alignment is enough. Move forward, not aggressively, deliberately. Forward now feels natural, like walking in the direction you were always meant to go. No hesitation, no noise, just movement. This movement is not fueled by urgency. It is fueled by clarity. Clarity lasts. This is why this chapter is the end. not because the journey stops, but because the foundation is complete. Everything that follows builds on this. You no longer need to search for yourself. You are here, present, capable, aligned. Reality will continue to respond, not always how you expect, but always in alignment you maintain yourself to be. Maintain clarity, maintain standards, maintain direction. Reality will follow. This is not hope. It is structure. You have stepped into it fully. And now, there is only one thing left to acknowledge. You are ready. I am ready, not for everything to be easy, but for everything to be handled. Not for certainty, but for alignment. Not for perfection, but for consistency. This readiness does not fade, because it is not emotional. It is structural. It is who you are now. Reality aligns with who you speak yourself into being. You have spoken clearly. You have acted consistently. You have become aligned. From here, life unfolds differently. Not because the world changed, because you did. Stand firm. Move forward. This is not the end. This is the standard. And you are ready. This is where the search ends. Not because there is nothing left to build, but because you are no longer uncertain about who is building. You are no longer guessing. You are no longer trying different versions of yourself, hoping one will work. You know what moves you forward, and you do it. You are no longer reacting. Life still applies pressure, but it no longer controls you. You pause. You choose. You respond with clarity. This is authority. You speak with intention now, not just out loud but inside. Your inner language is steady, clear, aligned with direction. That alignment is what changed everything. You did not force results. You did not overpower circumstances. You became consistent with yourself. And reality followed. It followed your standards. It followed your repetition. It followed your discipline. It followed the identity you chose to maintain when no one was watching. This is calm victory, not celebration, not relief. Certainty. Certainty that you can trust yourself. Certainty that you will follow through. Certainty that whatever comes next will be handled. Handled does not mean easy. It means aligned. From this point forward, you do not search for motivation. You move with structure. You do not wait for confidence. You act from self-trust. This is permanent, not because life will stop testing you, but because your response is no longer in question. You know how you show up now. You know how you speak to yourself. You know who is in command. I am ready. I rise. I decide who I become. And from here on, that decision stands. You made it to the end. That already says something about you. Most people stop early. You stayed. If this audiobook challenged you, if it sharpened your focus, if it reminded you of who you're becoming, then don't let this be a one-time moment. This channel exists for people who choose growth, discipline over comfort, clarity over noise, progress over excuses. If you want more audiobooks like this, more mindset training, more leadership, more inner strength, subscribe, like this video so it reaches the people who need it, and share it with someone who's ready to rise but hasn't found the words yet. Stay consistent, protect your mind, and keep moving forward. This is only the beginning.